Okay. Jerry, we're ready to go when you are. We have a quorum. I think a couple more people may join us, but we can get started.
Okay, I see. Well, I thought I saw somebody joining. Thought I saw Jordan.
She's here.
There she is. Sorry. Just appeared. Okay. I've got 7:32. We'll call the meeting to order. Do you want to say your piece, or should we do the roll call first, Porter?
Let me say my piece, if that's okay.
Sure.
So yeah, just want to remind everybody that we are on both Zoom and Cable Access Channel 25. We're broadcasting and recording this meeting. Also want to remind everybody that when you speak, just announce your name so people who may be listening via Zoom know who you are. And I think that's all I really need to say for this meeting.
All right, we'll do roll call. It's somewhat alphabetical until we got to the point where I stopped putting them in order. But I'm Jerry Johnson. I'm here. James Alexander?
Here.
All right. Marlo?
Here.
All right. Sarah?
Here.
All right. Kate? Not present. Well, I can't directly thank her for leading for last meeting, but Mary?
Here.
Joshua?
Here.
Let's see, Clint?
Not yet.
Not yet. Denise?
Here.
And Christina?
Here.
I think that's it. Right? Did I miss anybody?
Yes.
Who did I miss?
Hi, Jordan Martinez here.
Sorry, Jordan. You were number 7. I must have skipped over 7. My apologies.
Not.
All right. Sorry about that. First order of business is to approve the minutes from last meeting. I did want to go ahead and say thanks to Kate for leading and congratulate her on what I think in my time on the commission is the shortest meeting, 28 minutes. That's notable. Any comments on the minutes, or I would entertain a motion to approve those if there aren't.
I motion to approve the minutes. Jordan Martinez speaking.
Second, Mary Doveton.
All in favor? I'll abstain because I wasn't there, but that's unanimous. Yes, Christina. Gotcha. All right. Doesn't look like we have any public comment in this forum. We have new business, which is the January LCAC meeting, which I don't know if it's true that we cancel it due to the retreat. I think we just combine it with the retreat or whatever. It's not 2 separate meetings. And we typically do try to hold it on a Sunday that is close to the date that we would have had our meeting anyway, but whatever. We do one meeting in January, and it's our long, typically it's an offsite. I suspect this year it'll look more like this than anything else. but it is our meeting where we do our planning for the year. And I saw that you all had requested that Porter send out minutes from previous meetings. I think that's a great idea. I looked through those today. Just briefly, I mean, I can go through in detail and make a list of everything that we've forgotten to address over the last 3 or 4 years. But I think it's a good idea, and I think we should. Obviously, we still have time to look through that and to bring things forward to the agenda. However, the agenda has been put together. Or at least we got a copy of it in the email. So if there aren't any issues with us just holding one meeting in January that we call our retreat, maybe we can then move to discussing the agenda, the proposed agenda for the January meeting, which, by the way, the proposed date is January 20th, or I'm sorry, no. False. January 10th, 2021, from 1 to 4. So any issues with that, with the date, or with just having the one meeting? I don't want to assume that, but looks like no objections to that. So
Well, yeah, this is James Alexander.
Go ahead,
I do
James.
have something on that day, but I don't want to make everyone change the schedule just for me. So don't feel that you need to. But if it was on the 9th, that would work. But I'm sorry about that.
Oh, it's all right. Thanks for letting us know.
James, out of curiosity, when would you be available? You said later?
Yeah, sorry. Let me clarify that. Yeah, January 10th to 17th. This is James Alexander speaking. But yeah, January 10th to 17th, I'm busy. So anytime before and after that is fine.
Oh, I thought maybe you said you could do it in the evening, but I misunderstood. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, sorry about that.
That's okay, no problem.
Porter, it dawned on me, I don't think we gave you a chance to say your, did you do your spiel on the meetings about after the, oh, you did, before the roll call, that's right. Okay,
Yeah,
sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So here, let me do this. I'll share the screen with the current, this is just a draft agenda that I created from last time. So we can make changes to this, but can everybody see it?
Yes, I can, anyway.
As you can see in the beginning, some of this is sort of formality. Cultural Arts Commission business, where we elect officers. So I want people to start thinking about who might want to serve in various capacities, or if people are willing to stay in their current seat, that's fine too. So we'll do that, and then we'll just quickly go through the annual budget as it stands currently. And typically we go back and review the mission and goals, and then go through our arts and public art. We can review things, or we don't need to review things, but these are the two programs, and then the grant application scoring, we typically like to look at that and just make sure we review that. This year, excuse me, we got everything geared up and we got all the applications for the grants, and that's when the pandemic hit, so we never went through with those grants. And then also the Phoenix Awards, determine how we want to proceed with those for 2021. And then the role of the Cultural Arts Commission, reviewing the cultural plan and establish 2021 priorities. And what I'd love to do is set up the culture chat meetings in advance, and kind of get a sense of what we want those to look like, so that we can get them prepared and then develop a committee for each of those culture chats to make sure that we can coordinate efforts and get those marketed and facilitated.
So those things look good to me, Porter. One thing, and obviously we'll open it up for everybody to comment. One thing I wondered about is, in the past we've had more committees, smaller committees within this group, and we've used the annual meeting to, sort of discuss who wants to be on what committee and so forth. We've kind of consolidated some of that in the past few years, but I thought maybe, we would at least want to give a nod to that.
Agreed. And actually, this is the second page of the agenda. I forgot. Thank you. This is the committees as they stand now. I just removed all the members since a few people will be going off, but I thought I'd just hold the headings of each committee, and then we could determine if these are the committees we want to keep.
Okay, great.
All of you listed and who's shifting around and that type of thing. So
because we've got some new folks we want to get engaged in some of those.
But let me make sure I add that specifically to the agenda, committee review and assignments.
All right.
Oops, here's Clint.
Can we, this is Joshua, can we formally chastise Clint for being late? Like put that in the record or something?
We'll make him the chair of a committee.
Right.
You're too late.
Any comments from the group on the agenda? Other topics that anybody's got some heart for to add to this, or?
I had one thing I was gonna just throw up in the air. I was talking to a friend. He teaches history in Kalamazoo, Michigan. You may have all heard of the Kalamazoo Promise. It's a kind of crazy plan to me when I look it up, but it essentially grants university education to anyone who has gone through KPS. And so I was interested if Lawrence had any type of educational funding opportunities like that, or if we could just, if you were all interested in starting a discussion like that. Seems like something that could achieve some of the goals that the economic development plan was talking or going towards.
I don't think it would hurt. I mean, if you want to sort of, I don't know, I'm just brainstorming or whatever, but I mean, if you want to spend some time describing that, I think that'd be great. I mean, I'm happy to also look it up, but.
Yeah, I just throw a link in the chat so everyone can peruse that, but it's also just, pretty much what I said. If you go to Kalamazoo Public Schools for 4 years, then they have like a fund that grants university education to anyone who has gone through that school system, and it's set up to maintain itself. Sorry, this is James Alexander speaking. Didn't say that at first. But it's set up to maintain itself in perpetuity. So it's obviously set up through a donor system, but like looking for those donors isn't like a long-term project, but just something to throw in the air. But I'll put a link in the chat in 1 second.
So we have had discussions, and Porter's been helpful to us understanding about with just different ideas that we've had about, sort of outside funding and that type of thing. There's some difficulties in the way that we're set up in in doing that, but I don't know that I don't know that it's impossible. I remember, Porter, we a few years back, we were trying to decide whether we could receive donations to help with the sustainment of city-owned art and so forth, whether we could get the public to contribute to that. And there were some issues around that type of thing. I don't remember the exact details, but it was kind of some difficulties or whatever. But I'd for sure be willing to listen to more about this, the program, and I don't know how. I'm not quick enough on my thinking to figure out how we might be able to support that, but maybe through at least awareness or whatever. So,
agreed. Couple of thoughts. One, with that program, I'd be curious who oversees it and coordinates the funding. I would wonder if it is actually the city doing that or if it's the school district or somebody else. So I'd be curious about that. The other thing is that it's always great to see these other programs from other municipalities and things, but to also have a conversation of how does this align with our goals and efforts, which is something else that we can, that's what comes up out of the retreat to some degree is more open conversation about what do we want to achieve in 2021, and would something like this align with what we're trying to achieve over the course of the year. So it's just, that kind of awareness. That said, I think anybody bringing anything that they're aware of from outside, what I would encourage you to do is do a little bit of research and make sure there's some sort of background information of, what is this program, who funds it, how is it funded, and who oversees it, and is there some sort of governing board, or, how is it run, that type of thing. But yeah, no, I'm always curious to learn, absolutely.
This is James Alexander. Just to say, Porter, I sent it to you in the chat. I don't know. I can't send it to everyone for some reason, but if you don't mind dispersing the link.
Thank you for reminding me. The chat only comes to me because we've had people abuse the chat. Here, let me stop sharing. And there's the chat. So I will copy this. It literally is www.kalamazoopromise.com. Since it's that easy to speak it, that's what I'll do. But yeah, I think if everybody looks up Kalamazoo Promise, I'm sure you'll find it. Thank you, James.
This is Joshua, and I think it's a wonderful idea to explore what others have done and others are doing, and I would be happy to, since Mr. Alexander seems to be unavailable at the time of the retreat, if there was a way in which he might be able to do a recorded presentation or something that describes it, because there are a lot of folks doing a lot of innovative things, and I can't claim to know even a fraction of them. And I think going forward, and I think we have been in the past as well. I just want to reemphasize Cultural Arts Center or Arts Commission ought to be really open, especially to these younger folks on the commission, to exploring avenues that help sustain arts in our community. In whatever way, shape, or form, and we'll figure out ways to try to incorporate it for the betterment of the entire community. So I welcome Mr. Alexander's input on that, and anybody else's, as to what we might be able to do at an infrastructure level that maybe helps change the way the entire city interacts, views, supports art. And so I welcome that opportunity to hear more about it.
So Joshua, would you just, what about the idea, I'm just throwing this out, of us, sort of having as an agenda item, sort of a brainstorming sort of thing, or, you know, where people could toss those things out.
Yeah, no, that's exactly what I was thinking. I was wondering if maybe it takes more than an hour, but if we just put as an agenda item, because we have a lot of folks here who are extraordinarily well connected with other organizations, other cities, other places doing really innovative things. And if there's, you know, something somebody's doing somewhere else that we can kind of hear about and learn about and find how it might fit or not fit well within the Lawrence community, then I think that kind of opened the forum for ideas. Would hopefully, you know, in my way of thinking, hopefully just become like, for my discipline, a free writing exercise. You know, completely blank mind. Let's just free write and we'll see what comes out at the end. And, you know, there's no judgment. There's no anything. It's just, who knows what ideas can come to the surface if people are given an adequate venue, an opportunity to share them. And so I welcome that at all times.
I think it might be a good place to put that kind of brainstorming session, maybe under role of the LCAC, maybe after we review and establish the 2021 cultural plan priorities. That seems like a good place right before culture chat, just because we'll already be thinking about how our culture plan might be changing for 2021. So that might be a good time to brainstorm how we're changing, like Joshua and James said, the infrastructure of like how we handle funding for the arts and all that. What do we think?
I like it.
Since those are larger issues, I wonder if those are better at the beginning of the agenda. I'm just thinking of Zoom fatigue. And if we go into minutia at the beginning, like reviewing guidelines, I wonder if we're going to start to get burned out and not as creative with those kind of ideas. So is it better to move E, that whole section, up to, I can't look at the thing, but I think it was like B or C, like after the general executive stuff, then going to that versus going, I'm just thinking of the mural guidelines, that can be kind of minutia stuff. So I might get burned out. Yeah. Can it be after B? Like, could we swap E and C, perhaps?
So move E up where C is. Okay, I can't do it on.
This is a PDF.
And then also make E would then have three pieces to it. The middle piece would be this kind of brainstorming thing.
Got it.
Could come up with a better name maybe than brainstorming, but
Round robin.
Spitballing.
Spitball.
Thank you, James.
Yeah. More hip.
This is Mary. I've got a practical question. Will we have any idea by this January meeting what kind of budget we'll be looking at for the next fiscal year? Because it seems to me that will impact what our discussion leads us to in terms of both the Phoenix Awards and in terms of grant policies and reviews. Because if we don't have any money, we probably aren't going to want to spend a lot of time on either of those.
Right. You know, we can go off of last year's approved budget as a, you know, sort of placeholder of where things stand. You're correct in thinking that we don't know for sure how the funds will play out with the virus as far as what happens, but things are, you know, improving slowly but surely, and more hotel rooms are happening. So I can't say anything with confidence, but that would be the starting point. We won't have the budget approved We have, well, wait a minute, let me take it back. Sorry, I'm thinking ahead. The 2021 budget is approved. Forgive me. So I can bring you your 2021 budget. That was approved in August. And it's the same budget that you have this year. And then this year, as you know, because of the coronavirus, we didn't have access to the funds. So, I would say that there's some level of confidence that you will have your budget in 2021.
Do you think we'll be able to have, hi, I'm Denise. Do you think we'll be able to have the Phoenix Awards in the fall in light of COVID?
In person?
Yeah.
That's
probably not.
It's really hard to say. The vaccine sounds fairly optimistic, but how that plays out and how quickly it plays out is a big unknown.
So if we did have it, it would be through Zoom.
Well, this is Mary, but it depends too if we stay with the 2-year cycle that we had
Okay.
kind of set up. Because right now we don't have any artists working on awards.
Right.
So we would have to do that pretty quickly in order to be ready. And maybe we want to take this year, this 2021, as the year to do the preparation with the artists and then do the awards in 2022.
Okay. Yeah.
And
by that time, we should be able to do it in person, I hope.
And to add to that too, you do have a budget. I can't remember the overarching number, but keep in mind that budget is designed for the outdoor downtown sculpture exhibition, which if I remember correctly is about $30,000. And then you have $25,000 for the community arts grants. And then the Phoenix Awards, I believe, is $3,000. That's off the top of my head.
How much?
I think $3,000.
Okay.
You could conceivably reallocate some of those funds. They're not necessarily locked into the program, but it would potentially shift the programs. And again, this is a conversation we can have in January, and I can give you clearer information about this. But just to keep that in your minds, even though you have a limited allocation of funds, you can change how you want to spend those funds.
Yeah.
Have we given any more thought to, sorry, this is Sarah speaking. Have we given any more thought to a potential emergency relief fund in light of the possibility of not receiving most of these things or not being able to have several things because COVID has made things so difficult to project regardless of the vaccine?
There hasn't been any further conversation on that.
Could that be part of the agenda for then underneath the, I would say honestly, underneath the role of the LCAC?
If we, I mean,
Sorry, go ahead.
I think it's a point that we've talked about. I think it's great to add it to our discussions. I wonder if maybe it fits under the budget where if we might be having discussions about reallocating things, maybe it goes under there, reallocating, repurposing, or I don't know how we would say that, but in light of the pandemic and the situation that's put some folks in, maybe it goes there. I don't know.
Jerry, Jordan speaking, are you saying to put it under LCAC business budget review or general review 2020 priorities and establish 2021 priorities? Because that does sound like a 2021 priority.
Yeah. I just don't want it to get lost in the budget part because, that's the no bucks, no Buck Rogers, right? So so I mean, maybe we can just remember amongst ourselves that if it, I don't mind adding it to our, sort of our role and our objective or whatever, that's fine. But we might want to make sure that we note to talk on it during the budget part too, because that's the, it's a funding thing. But I understand the difference of talking about it in those two contexts.
Is there,
right? One is,
can we add that?
Yeah.
So add it, I'm a little confused, add it to the agenda under budget review.
This is Joshua. I don't see it as a part of a budget review, because those funds aren't there presently. I mean, we don't have those currently in our budget, but I do like Ms. Martinez's recommendation on 2021 priorities, in that we can and ought to be focused on serving, through community arts grants or other avenues, artists directly. And as this pandemic continues and continues, they just struggle more and more and more. And so I wonder if that's not a 2021 priority, and that we can start researching, if we haven't already, or start collecting ideas of where we might be able to find some of those relief funds, not for us, but for local artists.
Joshua, yeah, I agree. I think that's why I originally wanted to talk about it more underneath the role of the LCAC, because this pandemic is going on and on and on, and as we continue, it's becoming a direct issue as to the role of the LCAC as well, and not simply an issue of a yearly budget.
And I also think the pandemic is the issue of the moment, but it might not necessarily be the issue of 2022. And so to be able to have maybe perhaps something in those priorities, maybe an established sort of a thing, where are artists at that time, and how can we best serve our community by supporting and serving our artists, our local artists. Especially, I don't know, Jerry knows more about this than I do, but I have a lot of friends in the local music scene, and I don't even know where that's at now, and it's kind of awful to think about. But whether it's pandemic or whether it's something else, the circumstances change, and we ought to have kind of a changing sort of priority to serve artists, in different media and in different situations, whatever may present itself.
Could I just clarify? So just for my own notes, so are we agreeing to discuss the potential of establishing an emergency fund as a triage, essentially, in our 2021 priorities, but also, like Sarah mentioned, keeping an open mind for how this might change the structure proceeding? Yes? Just to sum that up.
I guess this is Mary. I guess I'm a little confused, because in order to have an emergency fund, you have to have money. And unless you want to redirect the grant program to go into emergency funds for artists, but that's pretty much what they are anyway, because there's only $25,000. They're in the best of times right now. We might be better served by looking at the priorities that the City Commission has established. And seeing where we fit in there, and striving to align our requests with their goals?
Well, that's a good point, Mary. This is Joshua. That's a good point. So for our January retreat, I was going to call it a summit, but whatever it is.
That's good.
But whatever it is, I think there's an interest there, and maybe we can find a place for it to have this conversation about how emergency relief funds may be in alignment with or differ from a community arts grant, and or find a place for it, like find a structure for that sort of place, and then we can have like, because I'm really interested now in trying to get into this conversation for the next 3 hours or however many they are. But I know this isn't the place for it. We're setting the agenda for that Sunday meeting. So maybe we can find a place to place that conversation within the agenda. And I don't really care where that is necessarily. I think it's just important that we have it. We see where that is. Maybe we have a grants committee that pursues grants that can just funnel through and directly support local artists, directly support local musicians, and there's kind of an active sort of engagement in that, so that we're not beholden to exclusively city funding within their budget as they decide. There's maybe some exterior granting agencies or other agencies who might be able to assist and support.
Yeah, I love the idea. I think it's great discussion. I'm happy for it to go in the review of the 2021 priorities, and we can discuss it in that section. I think it's great.
And I'll remind you too that this is a map that you all can, if you say, well, we really should talk about something else at this moment, you can change your agenda. It's not like it's absolutely written in stone. It really is just a guide, an outline of the topics that you want to talk about. So don't get too concerned about exactly where it is. You can certainly bring things up at different times if you want to. So for my clarity though, since I'm the one crafting this, now I'm hearing put it under D, or are you talking E where it says review established 2021 priorities, Jerry? Oh, I'm thinking you guys.
Well, in fact, those words that you just read are in both.
Yes, I know. That's why I'm asking, because I'm a little unclear. Hang on, let me get it back up. I apologize. So if I'm hearing correctly, Sarah's suggesting it goes here at the bottom of this.
Porter, yes, that's correct. I was suggesting it would go in the role of the LCAC and the review after our brainstorm session that we were going to put in there, because I feel like this is a fundamental part of the LCAC and goes beyond just the pandemic, and that the pandemic is instead a catalyst for us to begin something. So that's where I was envisioning it. I know we were discussing it would also go underneath general, since it is so relevant to current as well. But I personally feel like it would fit better underneath role of the LCAC.
Okay, thank you. Jerry, is that what you were thinking too?
I'm fine with it there, okay. Sure.
I just want to make sure. I will do that. So under E, A will be cultural plan as it stands. B will be the brainstorming before, and then put the emergency relief fund before culture chat and after brainstorm. I see Jordan. All right, she's giving me a thumbs up. I'm going with that. Thank you. And it actually occurs to me that I don't know that I'm going to have a report because of the pandemic. There's really not much to report. So, you know, and I'll be interjecting throughout the whole meeting, so I can take that off and carve back a little bit to make sure we have time.
Well, before you do that, Porter, I'm not on mute. Okay, good. I was wondering if we might, if you might have a few minutes for that time to sort of tell us about what's going on with your role and your connection to us and your other hat that you wear, or hats probably that you wear, and so forth. It shouldn't take long, but it's different now than how it has been in the past, and maybe you could spend a few minutes describing that to us and how you see it in the near future.
Actually, that's a good point, because we are working on the strategic plan as well, and so I want to bring you up to speed on where that will be at that point too. So good point. I'll leave it. Thank you.
This is Joshua, and I think it might also be helpful for some of our new commissioners to understand that how that was set up, how that came to be, and how that all panned out. You know, there was just the history of it, just so we can have a better understanding of where the city stands on supporting the arts and culture in the community.
I'm not sure exactly where this would fit. This is Marlo. I would love to have a section in there to talk about advocacy. I think Porter had emailed out that economic strategic plan, and I think we're at a really great position at the moment with the city recognizing that the arts have not been funded in the way that they should have. And so I think we have this document that backs us up what we've been saying for years. So I wonder if there's a momentum that could be built upon, and to have part of our meeting to find out how to capitalize off of that, whether that means advocating for funding from the City Commission, or you know, talking about where we're getting our funding from. Like right now, we're dependent on the TGT funds, and we've had discussions about getting our funding from back to where it was in the general fund. So I just wonder if there could be a place in the agenda, or just in our minds, that we might circle back to that at the retreat.
I think this is Mary. I think that's really important, Marlo. And I think if people haven't read the economic development strategic plan, it would be really useful, because the arts are featured so prominently. And it's kind of a matter sometimes of getting people to put the money where their mouth is. And I think that we certainly have some good grounds this year to have a fresh approach.
Yeah, that third-party validation is so important. So we're all, cheerleaders for the arts already, but to have an outside entity saying, there really should be more funding for this because it's such a valuable part of the community, I think we take it and run with it and do something big.
Yeah.
Do you have a place, Marlo, where you think it?
Just put it in somewhere.
All right, we'll put it under. How about review, in the general review of our priorities? Instead,
Right. Sounds good.
All right, all good stuff, folks. Any other things that we might consider adding? Okay, none heard. The next thing up is committee updates. I don't know who I always call on Marlo when I see culture chat, but I don't want to put her on the spot. And if there's somebody else who's supposed to be doing that, but that's what it says on the agenda, culture chat committee update.
haven't met as a committee since our last culture chat, so I don't think there's much to report, but I love Porter's idea of getting them on the calendar during the retreat, so we have something to market. I think I was looking at one of the other retreat minutes, and it did say that culture chat at one time might have been quarterly, and I wonder if that's a great way to go. That way we're not struggling to put something together every month, but we can make more of an impact doing 4 per year and really knowing what they are, planning them out in January, and then hitting them strong. So that was just a thought that I had about that.
Great. And then I penciled in roundtable update. I am, for whatever reason, never tuned in to jump on there, but if somebody is and would like to share anything that they've heard off of that, we could probably toss that in right here.
Kate is usually the one who attends that meeting. I don't know if anybody else has. I was not able to, I don't even remember if they had, did they have it, Marlo?
Yeah, we had a meeting last week.
Okay.
So we did kind of back off of we were kind of getting some momentum thinking about Final Friday winters and trying to get something going in January. And I think as the numbers increased just before Thanksgiving, everybody kind of said, you know what, maybe this is not the right time to do that. So we're tentatively looking at spring, for community partners to get together and thinking of some creative ways for people to socially distance experience art. That was kind of the biggest part of that. And then just everybody sharing what great things are going on for the holidays. We've had some great virtual experiences at the Art Center, and there's been some fun caroling with the Midwestern Music Academy. So those are pretty much the updates from Roundtable.
Thanks. Any miscellaneous?
Actually, I have something. I don't want to take action on this, but there's a couple who has an artwork that was created by Walt Hull and artist Ramberg. It's a metal sculpture that's similar, if any of you are familiar with Walt's work. And I think from what I can see in the image, it's about 4 feet tall or so. It's called Talisman. And they asked me, they're planning their estate. They're making estate plans, happily not with any urgency. But they think that they want to donate this to the city. So they filled out a donation form. But as I reviewed the form, they were suggesting maybe an art museum or a theater. And I thought, well, that's really not in the city's purview directly. And I don't know if the Spencer or Theater Lawrence might be interested in something like this. But I'm reluctant to jump in and just accept it as a donation to the city because quite honestly, and I say this with great respect to the city that I work for, I'm not sure the city is the best candidate for art collecting, frankly. Apparently this could be an interior or exterior piece, but because of its size, I'd be concerned about it being in an exterior environment if it was not near another building or something. So I just wanted to let you guys know about that. I'm going to contact the couple, but does anybody have any thoughts at this point? I apologize, I don't have an image of this handy. Actually, I might.
Well, I mean, I think this group is well served to assist in finding it a rightful place, whether that's, one of our arts institutions or the city itself. I appreciate you bringing it to our attention. I think we've got folks on this commission who could help figure out the best place for that.
And I'm trying to think of the best way to facilitate a conversation like that.
Yeah, I wonder, I don't know, I always go to process, which is, so boring or whatever, but I mean, as part of that process or form that you all, or that we have, the city has for accepting that type of stuff, I wonder if we could expand that or because we really are the advisory board to the city on those types of things. And so when someone's trying to give us, from the goodness of their hearts thing, I think it falls on us to decide whether we're the best recipient. And if we're not, why wouldn't we be able to help them find a place for it?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Or we could just call around and say, who, no, I mean, seriously.
All right, so this, if you guys can see it, this is the image that was included in their donation packet. This is obviously set up in their home, and hopefully you all can see that. Jerry, I like what you're saying, and I think that's good wisdom. And let me do this. I'm going to contact them and just let them know that I haven't completely dropped the ball on this. And it sounds like maybe I should bring it to the February meeting, and that way we can have a good conversation about it and come up with some good wisdom as to how to proceed. Does that work?
Sounds good.
Okay.
Yeah, sounds good.
This is Christina. I think it would be helpful too to have some background or context about perhaps other works that the city has acquired via donation, just to kind of get a sense of, is this kind of a typical thing that we do? Kind of what's come before it. I think at least that would help me understand the process a little bit better.
Yeah, we could talk about that too. There's not many. It's not, the city isn't the first place that people look to donate things. And I think this couple is wonderful. They're really trying to do right by both Walt, who's a dear friend, and by the city. I'm not sure they fully understand the city's purview, and I think that's one of the things. But so, yeah, obviously this needs a further conversation, because I think, like them, we want to make sure it finds a really good home. So thanks. That's really helpful. I appreciate it. I wasn't quite sure what to do with this when I, first received it, but that makes sense. That's it for miscellany.
All right. Before I call for a motion to adjourn, anyone else have any miscellaneous?
I would just, this is Joshua. We had some art classes at high school and had some guest speakers via Zoom that we recorded, and they were just stellar conversations about there were 4 Native artists here at the end of this semester. So if anybody would like to receive those links to view those recordings, I'd be happy to share. Just what their experience is as a Native artist and how they communicate with potential Native artists in the future. It was really, really cool. And our instructor and our students were really pumped about it. And so I'd be happy to share if you would like.
Yeah, and if it's appropriate, if you share those links, I can add them to the minutes.
Sure. That'd be great. I'd for sure be interested in seeing a little bit of that. It sounds really cool.
Josh, send them to me, and then I'll send them to the board.
Yeah, will do. As you may know, I set all those Zoom meetings up. I was not able to attend any of them. And so I missed out on all of them. So I'm going to enjoy them as well. So thank you. I will share those forthwith.
Nice.
Great. All right.
Jerry, this is Mary.
Hi, Mary.
I should also say that I'm the representative from this group on the TGT advisory board. So we have been reviewing grants, and it ultimately kind of comes back to what will be our discussion in January about monies and grants and things, because currently the TGT has a budget of about $120,000 in grant funds that it expends, and it's a real mixed bag. It goes from basketball and volleyball to things that are brought forward by Watkins Museum or the Spencer or downtown Lawrence. So it's kind of a challenge to look at all those different projects and make meaningful decisions. And I think ultimately, I don't know, Porter, I should talk to you about this, but ultimately, I don't know if that impacts what our relationship with the city moving forward, or our relationship with the TGT, or how funding should or might best benefit the arts.
I would like to second what, this is Joshua, second what Mary is communicating about TGT funds. I've had a conversation with Kate with similar concerns as to how those funds are allocated, what sort of follow-up and you know, the funds are determined and allocated with a specific goal in mind. And there's not necessarily a lot of follow-up on whether those goals were achieved. There's not quite a closing of the loop, we'll say. And I have some other thoughts. I'd be happy to be in that conversation about how that pans out and what that might mean for different events, different venues. I think that's a really, really important conversation to ensure that we're living up to our responsibilities in terms of what those TGT funds are meant to be, or what they ought to be, what they should be, et cetera.
I mean, I'm not necessarily suggesting adding this to the retreat, but I mean, I for one could benefit from somewhat of a primer on the TGT. Honestly, I mean, I understand where the source of the money comes from, but I'm not at all informed how it gets divided and whether that's by application. You know, I'm sure the grants obviously have applications and so on and so forth, but it's a much bigger fund than the number that Mary was mentioning. And I'm really not in the know on how that works. So maybe for a future meeting or something we could get, maybe for that February meeting or whatever.
I hesitate to suggest a subcommittee because by doing so, I automatically volunteer myself for that subcommittee. No, but I do think in all honesty, to be forthright with public funds, that there's got to be some clarity. There ought to be some follow through. There ought to be particular reporting requirements that demonstrates that these funds are well spent and on appropriate things. And you know, and I don't want to get into the exact guidelines or criteria for awarding those, but it certainly could be a bit more rigorous in that we can demonstrate what that is. Because to my knowledge, it's really just, you know, what I decide to tell you, and not hard data and numbers as to how that pans out. So
yeah, appreciate.
You know, I think it's a good conversation, and I appreciate Mary for bringing that up.
Yeah.
Yeah, and while our funds are tied to it for the time being, we should know. You know, it looks like there is some education out there that Porter's getting ready to share with us.
Yeah, I just want to, because I think Mary brings up an important thing, and obviously there's an educational piece to this. There is a web page you can see here. It's lawrenceks.org/CMO/TGT-grants. And so you can see, for those who are not familiar, here's the page that has all the background information. We have pandemic information. The grant guidelines are here, the goals of the grant, the process, the timeline that we've been doing. More information, you contact me. And then if you want to, under additional resources, the actual 2021 grant applications are available. They're right here. So you can actually go through and see all of the grants that were, these are the applications that Mary's reviewing. And this shows you that there's an array. This is a kid's soccer program. Days of Creativity is being proposed. The Douglas County Fair is approaching, is applied. Downtown Lawrence sidewalk sale. So Mary's right. There's a wide array of things. And this program was developed initially because people would come out of cycle and approach the city commission and just ask for funding. And obviously that's not really fair or reasonably competitive. And so this was developed as a competitive grant program specifically for events. And because it is funded through the transient guest tax program, it is set up with two primary goals. Mary and I just had this conversation. One is to demonstrate a measurable economic benefit, including enhancing the cultural economy or travel tourism economy, create additional transient guest tax and sales tax. And the second goal is enhance Lawrence's character and reputation for tourist activities and demonstrate a pull of regional visitors. So just to give you that background information, I think it is worthy of a further conversation and better understanding, and I could certainly provide that for the February meeting as well. But I wanted to give you guys the resource. You can go and do some of your own research if you're interested as well.
This is Joshua, and thank you, Porter. I think those are excellent points, and having those proposals for funding are terrific. Having the reports on the funding and data that supports some of that stuff, I think is equally important to be shared with the public. And that's been my concern is how many folks are saying 10,000 people are going to come in and get hotel rooms, and then nobody does. But we don't have that data other than, oh yeah, we had this many attendees, but there's no, as with any other grant opportunities, the reporting structures that I know Marlo knows this as well. The Free State Festival is rigorous in their accounting of all of that, and it's something that I think the city of Lawrence ought to be rigorous about as well in its expectations of people applying for those funds. So thank you. Yeah, I think it's a good conversation.
All right. Anything else before someone makes a motion to adjourn?
I've talked too much already, but if it means we adjourn, I make that motion right now.
I'll second that.
All right, all in favor? I, for one, as a person, really appreciate each of you and your commitment to this group and how you devote your time and thoughts and everything to arts and culture in the city of Lawrence. It's fantastic. Thank you, all of you.
Hear, hear.
Have a good evening.
Good night, everybody.
Have a great Christmas, everybody.
Happy Hanukkah.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays.